I've had the privilege of coming to India 27 times now and been to many, many other countries around the world. So I've been outside of the United States about 200 times. So I've been in many different cultures. I've spoken to Christians and non-Christians in many different nations in many different settings. I've had meals in homes and sat and met people. And even though the cultures can be tremendously different, I mean, the music is so different, and the food is so different, and the dress is so different, and the smells are so different, and certain customs are so different. You know, what's respectful in one culture is disrespectful in another culture. What's amazing is that we have shared common values. Here's the joy of a child being born, and here's the grief of a child dying, and here's the excitement of an accomplishment in, you know, graduating with honors from a school, and here's the disappointment of being fired from a job, and here's the feeling of guilt that I let someone down, or here's the feeling of exaltation that my team won. That there are universal values. I remember for the first time in my life preaching in a village in India and thinking, my life is so different and my culture is so different. But when we began to talk about real life, when we began to talk about the burden of sin and the desire to live without guilt, and it was the same message that hit home. So a master communicator can communicate in such a way that what he or she says has relevance for peoples across culture. It's very interesting that when you read the parables of Jesus, so he will explain things with a picture. The kingdom of God is like this, or compare it to something like this, that a child can understand it, and great scholars debate the meaning of it. C.S. Lewis was one of the great intellectuals of the last century. He was a famous professor at one of the leading institutes in England, a great scholar in English literature, and he wrote books that have reached probably over 100 million people in book form or movie form. The Chronicles of Narnia, where he just puts things with a world with animals and different beings and things like that. So he was brilliant enough to write something that everybody could understand, from a child to a scholar. So there are these universal values, and with great wisdom they can be communicated. And that brings me back to the first point, that God who made us and God who understands the very core of our being, and who knows our thoughts when we're struggling and depressed, and who knows our pain that we carry, and who knows our hopes and dreams, that he can inspire writers to write things in such a way where there's universal value. So if someone wonders about the wisdom of God, read the book of Proverbs. If someone wonders about the character and the teaching of Jesus, read the Sermon on the Mount. And for someone that wants to get a picture of who God is, read a book like the book of Isaiah. And it's just amazing how much common ground there is. And that's why when you translate the Bible into different languages, it works. You translate it into different languages and people read it on their own. In fact, that's one of the evidences of divine inspiration that is so applicable for so many people in so many cultures in so many ages.